Taiwan's shrinking population problem. New figures show it's on track to have the lowest fertility rate in the world. Troubled chips. TSMC faces a reported cut to orders for its most advanced products. And we're at the Migrant Workers World Cup, where it's not just Qatar's, but Taiwan's labor practices under scrutiny. A warm welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Leslie Liao. Taiwan is on track to overtake South Korea as the country with the world's lowest fertility rate. That's according to a new government forecast. The prediction has once more sparked promises of government action, but it's also raising concerns for the country's future. John Van Trieste reports.
These are some of Taiwan's newest citizens. And while their parents welcome them into the world, the children are also a grateful addition to a society that's rapidly aging. Taiwan's National Development Council has predicted a slight uptick in births over the coming years. But even with this boost, the NDC projects that by 2035, Taiwan will slip past South Korea to become the nation with the lowest fertility rate on the planet.
有经济因素，年轻人现在有薪资，但是也很难存钱嘛。南韩跟台湾一样，结婚跟生育两个关系非常的密切，只要结婚往下走，生育就会往下走。结了婚并没有离婚的，这现在目前婚姻关系还在的。我们的有偶率下降的速度比韩国快很多。
The government has pledged more money for its childbirth subsidy programs.
投入金额也大幅增加，从100多亿变成明年的预算可能会超过1000亿，甚至于对于这些所谓的不孕症有意愿想要生小孩子的部分然后给予补助所以这个部分在今年也看到一些成效。
But on the street, concern for Taiwan's future remains.
人口少，这个是国家的国安问题，这不是只有家庭问题，也都没有人上班或没有人做这些事情的时候怎么办？
And if the government's projections are correct, Taiwan's shrinking population could remain a serious issue for years to come. Asnaya Zhou and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
The end of COVID restrictions around the world and rising global inflation have seen many consumers abandon big-ticket electronic items. And that's bad news for the producers of the world's computer chips, like Taiwan's TSMC. The world's biggest contract chip maker has recently seen its orders drop by as much as 50%. Yujing Huang has more.
Piles of computer graphic cards, but no buyers. For the past 2 years, consumers around the world have struggled to get their hands on electronics like these. The unsold cards are a sign of the slowing electronics market and the semiconductors which they rely on. The cooling market has had a chilling effect on the semiconductor industry, a sector that accounts for 12% of Taiwan's GDP. And the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company has been feeling the impact. According to local media, a major customer abruptly canceled its orders of TSMC's most advanced 3nm chips. Other clients are also preparing for a slowdown.
我们目前手上的订单都还没有砍单的一些情况啦。客户在这段时间在对于未来资本支出上面，事实上是考虑期变得拉得比较长。现在目前看起来有延后接近1季左右。
But many in the industry predict that this slump in the market will not last long. TSMC says its plan for 3nm production has not changed and says the node will enter mass production in the fourth quarter of this year. Experts are also optimistic for the company's long-term outlook.
先前包括的7nm的一个制程已经出现产能利用率比较明显下滑的一个态势，之客户上，那可能后续会有比较延后导入3nm制程的一个状况。未来在这个台积电的整体营运还是有机会，在这个历经2023年的低档之后，2024年还是有机会可以看到比较明显回升的一个态势。
Although there is a weakening demand for semiconductors, it's most likely to be temporary. Chips continue to form the core of the vast array of smart devices in homes, offices, and in people's pockets. Andy Xie and Eugene Huang for TaiwanPlus.
Now we head to South Korea, where the head of the country's police force has taken responsibility for the deadly crowd crush in Seoul on Saturday. Police Commissioner Yoon Hee-kyun says that police response to the incident that killed over 150 people was inadequate. An initial investigation revealed that police failed to respond despite receiving calls about a dangerously large crowd forming. Officers stationed at the location of the disaster were mostly monitoring crime and narcotics use, not crowd control. The FIFA World Cup will kick off later this month in Qatar, where authorities are facing intense scrutiny for their treatment of migrant laborers. Taiwan has also come under criticism for its treatment of migrant workers. A nonprofit organization is using the moment to call for change. Stash Butler has the story.
Overseas workers living in Taiwan battle it out on the football pitch for a unique crown, the Migrant Workers World Cup.
We have people from Thailand, from Indonesia, Philippines, and then we have what we call the white-collar workers. So we're trying to bring the foreign community together.
The event, held by the Global Workers Organization, aims to show solidarity with laborers at the FIFA World Cup in Qatar. Authorities there have leaned heavily on migrant workers to prepare for the tournament.
The migrant workers make up more than 90% of the domestic workforce. So it's really incredible. If you think about all the glitzy infrastructures, the stadium, the airport, the rail, it's built by migrant workers.
For years, Qatar has been criticized for how it's treated its laborers. Along with numerous reports of workplace injuries, rights groups say thousands have died. And according to human rights researcher Bonnie Ling, few of those deaths have been properly investigated.
The problem is Qatari authorities often, record migrant death as unexplained death. So the numbers are not transparent.
Qatar says the World Cup will be a, quote, catalyst for the progress of workers' welfare and labour reform. But rights groups say there's been little momentum in addressing concerns. And that's why organisers of this tournament say events like this are necessary to support the rights of workers around the world.
Taiwan has around 700,000 migrant workers, mostly from Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, and the Philippines. And despite Taiwan's reputation as a country championing human rights, they face many of the same problems as those workers in Qatar: low wages, poor working conditions, and discriminatory treatment.
And like Qatar, there are also concerns that Taiwan is not doing enough to enforce safety standards in the workplace.
比较大的问题是因为很多的小的工厂，所以他们没有很好的安全的 equipment， 还有那个 training， 所以他们很容易受伤，在工厂里面。所以我刚刚一直在讲，如果你在工厂工作，他们受伤或者是他们死亡的比例比台湾人高出很多倍，这个是比较严重的问题。
12 teams took part in the tournament, with players from several continents vying to take home the title. The competitors were a mix of students, factory workers, labourers and professionals. It was an opportunity to play a game they love and highlight issues that affect many of them.
It doesn't matter your status. We have to speak out when we meet this kind of human rights abuse. If there are bosses who are doing this, we shouldn't be afraid of talk. We have to speak out to let everyone know so that together we can make a change.
And one of the biggest changes needed, according to campaigners, is in the recruitment process, which locks workers into a cycle of debt.
We know about them coming to Taiwan in debt, right? Because they have to pay for their job in Taiwan. And that is a problem. And that is a problem also for workers going to Qatar. We exist in the world where there are parallel recruitment structures. One for the high-wage workers, where people would laugh if you have to pay that much just to, get a job abroad. But that's completely expected for the world's most vulnerable workers.
Taiwan is not taking part in the FIFA World Cup, but labour exploitation in Qatar off the pitch has shed light on a pattern of abuse that reaches Taiwan's borders. As the World Cup approaches, many here hope it will kickstart a movement that will make labour rights a permanent fixture long after the tournament ends. Alex Chen and Stash Butler for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's Vice President William Lai is visiting Palau to boost travel between the two countries and strengthen cooperation. Taiwan last month opened to visitors after more than 2 years of strict COVID border controls, and flagship carrier China Airlines plans to resume regular flights to Palau later this month. The Pacific Island nation is one of Taiwan's 14 remaining diplomatic allies.
我们非常期待经由这一次的访问，能够增进两国之间的合作，不管是在外交，或者是观光、医疗、教育、文化跟其他的面向，都能够有更进一步的进展。不仅仅可以进一步的巩固两国的邦谊，增进两国人民的感情，那我们呢也可以进一步的在国际上一起合作，推广、深化民主、自由、人权的价值。
More vaccine doses earmarked for Taiwan's children have arrived in the country. The 600,000 doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech jab are meant for kids aged 6 months to 4 years. The vaccination rate in that age group is low, with just about 30% having received a first dose. 3 shots will be required for each child, spread out over 3 months. This is the final batch of Pfizer vaccines Taiwan has bought for children this year. From one vaccine to another, vaccine maker Medigen has released details of its contract with the Taiwan government to provide COVID-19 jabs. The Taipei-based company says it's taken this step to refute rumors of illegal practices like charging commissions. It says it fulfilled the terms of the contract by giving the government 5 million doses, with each dose costing around $26. The decision by Taiwan's government to invest in Medigen has drawn criticism from opponents. The vaccine is not widely recognized around the world, and the government was forced to throw away unused doses. While Taiwan debates vaccine prices, China is still trying to eliminate COVID entirely. The Disneyland resort in Shanghai has been locked down for the second time in a year after 10 cases of COVID-19 were reported in the city. It's the latest sudden lockdown of a high-profile tourist destination in the country. James Chater reports.
Visitors to Shanghai's Disneyland making a dash for the exit. It's far from the magical experience they'd hoped for. This was the line for mandated COVID tests. After 10 cases of COVID were reported in the Chinese city, the theme park proceeded to lock visitors inside. Guests had to return a negative COVID test before they were permitted to leave. For those that got out, it was a memorable experience, but for all the wrong reasons.
心情肯定焦急啊，对，肯定焦急，反正票退了，今天门票给退了。
This is the second time in a year that Shanghai's Disneyland has locked its visitors inside. In late 2021, more than 30,000 people were locked down there after authorities ordered mandatory COVID tests for contact tracing. At the recent Chinese Communist Party Congress, China's President Xi Jinping doubled down on his zero-COVID approach. He did so despite the policy continuing to throttle economic growth. Footage this week emerged of workers fleeing a Foxconn facility in China's Henan province. This came after lockdowns were enforced in the world's largest Apple iPhone factory. But for other people, the zero-COVID policy simply spoiled a fun day out.
有点失望嘛，因为我们今天在里面等了，其实时间蛮久的嘛。然后我们特意从深圳飞过来，为了万圣节，因为它有限定的那个烟花。然后呢，今天花车也没有，烟花也没有，反派的那个巡游也没有，就什么都没看到。然后还在里面等到现在快10点了才出来。对，然后又冷又饿。对。
There appears to be no end in sight to China's zero-COVID policy. And while the threat of sudden lockdowns remain, future visitors to Shanghai's Disneyland may also find out that it's a small world there after all. Klein Wang and James Chater for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up, President Tsai Ing-wen visits an Air Force repair center. Find out why military maintenance is back in the spotlight after the break.
I'm Rick Liao for TaiwanPlus. For more stories from Taiwan and around the world, download the TaiwanPlus app.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen has visited an F16 Maintenance Center in Taichung to assess the country's most advanced fighter jets. The center now allows Taiwan to repair the jets domestically rather than sending them to the United States for maintenance. Bing Wang reports.
Keeping a close eye on the fighter jet parts, President Tsai personally inspects an F-16 Maintenance Center opened in 2020. The US-made F-16 is Taiwan's most advanced fighter jet yet, and is integral to the country's future defense plans. The center allows F-16s to be maintained in Taiwan. Before, the parts were required to be sent to the US for repairs.
满足我们战机自主维修的能量，缩短战机维修所需要的时间成本，是建立国防产业供应链中的重要工作。这也是2年前政府民间合作成立 F16 维修中心的目标。
Taiwan has purchased new F-16s to supplement its aging fleet, but the first jets aren't expected to arrive until next year. In just the past 2 years, 2 of the aircraft have been lost in training accidents. This has put a renewed spotlight on maintenance levels of military aircraft.
Some also argued that Taiwan has kind of old-fashioned and kind of old military hardware. So that's why Pentagon and the Biden administration just approved kind of, military hardware to support, to strengthen Taiwan's military equipment.
To boost Taiwan's defense capabilities, the Defense Ministry proposed a 13.9% hike to its budget. That amounts to a record $18 billion, 2.4% of Taiwan's GDP, which is up 0.2% from 2022. $3 billion of this will go towards equipment maintenance.
I think the change resides in our reserve system, mobilization system, and the morale of your population. Now, what the government and the military wants to do is to harvest this change in morale, this morale, in order to basically enhance our combat readiness.
Around $6 billion will be earmarked for salary, benefits, and pensions for military personnel. This is in hopes of attracting more talent into joining the military. In a time of increasing military threats from neighboring China, Taiwan has made building up its military and maintaining its hardware as a paramount means of deterring potential attacks. And the country is all too aware that it cannot afford to lose too much precious military hardware away from the battlefield. Klein Wang and Bing Wang for TaiwanPlus.
Let's now take a look at some of the top stories in Asia. China has criticized a U.S. and Australian plan to deploy 6 American B-52 bombers to a base in northern Australia.
美方有关做法加剧地区局势紧张，严重破坏地区和平稳定，可能引发地区军备竞赛。
The B-52, the bigger aircraft in this picture, can carry nuclear and conventional weapons. According to Australian broadcaster ABC, the U.S. will build facilities to station 6 of the aircraft near Darwin, the capital of Australia's Northern Territory. The U.S. Air Force says the move shows America's ability to project lethal air power. American B-52 bombers have been hosted in Australia for more than a decade. But more investment is being made available for the aircraft to operate from the country. On the eve of the historic Communist Party Congress in China last month, banners condemning Chinese leader Xi Jinping appeared on a Beijing bridge. The demonstration lasted just minutes, but has gone on to inspire similar movements around the world. Ryan Kilpatrick has more.
Freedom, not lockdowns.
Dignity, not lies. Be a citizen, not a slave. These are the words painted onto a set of banners raised atop Beijing's Setong Bridge. The sentiments have struck a chord with many people in China and in Chinese-speaking communities throughout the world.
I've seen in many U.S. campuses, on campuses in the UK, they use the slogans that were used by the bridge protester. So it's a movement that connecting people inside the country and outside country.
The protester responsible has been identified by the online handle Peng Zai Zhou, or simply as Bridgeman. The banners were hung on the bridge at a particularly sensitive time for the Chinese authorities. They appeared on the eve of the Communist Party Congress in late October. The small demonstration has gone on to spark related incidents in other parts of the country. In Shanghai, which has suffered repeated COVID-19 lockdowns, residents marched with a similar banner, though theirs omitted the sensitive terms from Peng's original.
And the message resonates with so many people in China because people don't want this COVID policies that have been going on for, now 3 years.
Following the Setong Bridge protest, the Chinese authorities' censorship apparatus went into overdrive. There were moves to hide any information about the incident from being shared online.
On that very day, 600,000 WeChat accounts were deleted or censored in some manner. For example, suspended for 15 days, 10 days, and people simply suspended for, I've seen it. Simply saying, I've seen it.
Despite this aggressive censorship, the Bridgeman's message still managed to find a worldwide audience. Some civil rights activists are speculating that it could be the beginning of an even wider movement.
I'm pretty confident to say that it's not going to be a fleeting moment. I feel like this is going to be enduring because so many people have known it. And so many people shared his sentiment.
The banners were only on display in Beijing for a handful of minutes before they were removed. However, it's clear their message has managed to hang on for far longer. Ryan Kilpatrick for TaiwanPlus.
The U.S. and South Korea are conducting their largest military air drills in over 5 years. Officials say that the exercises, known as Vigilant Storm, will include almost 250 advanced fighters simulating 24 hours of mock attacks. The drills come as North Korea has conducted a record number of ballistic missile tests so far this year. Pyongyang insists that the joint exercises are proof of hostile policies by the U.S. and South Korea, but Washington says the drills are needed to counter threats from the north. We return to Taiwan now to catch up on the latest from the campaign trail ahead of the country's local elections later this month. Things have been getting particularly combative in the northern city of Hsinchu, where local politicians are trading barbs. Eric Gao reports.
The war of words in Hsinchu's mayoral race has been heating up. The focus, Taiwan People's Party candidate Gao Hong'an. Gao has been the target of plagiarism allegations, with a former employer filing a lawsuit over the issue. During a recent out-of-town campaign appearance, Gao issued this response.
今天来到彰化，真的感受到非常开心的一个气氛哦，远离这个是非相当多的新竹。今天谢谢我。
But Lingan Ren, Gao's Kuomintang opponent, says Hsinchu isn't the problem.
大多数的争议都不是发生在新竹，是高候选人自己之前的问题，把自己的问题归咎给新竹，变成是非之地，这样不太对。
Gao then pushed back, saying Ling was exaggerating and taking her words out of context.
我们昨天所说的是在新竹的选战当中有这么多的是非，所以我请对手不要再置换这些主词，在偷换概念之下来尝试着又要攻击高虹安。
The campaigns are becoming increasingly contentious as the days count down. With less than a month to go before the vote, polls show Gao to be neck and neck with her Democratic Progressive Party opponent, Seng Hui-hong. Meanwhile, Ling continues to trail more than 10 points behind both in third place.
其实结果是非常接近，更重要的是，候选人要靠自己努力一步一步的耕耘。
Voters will go to the polls on the 26th of November. It's only then that the candidates will find out if their verbal feuding will have a significant effect on the election outcome. Damon Lin and Eric Gao for TaiwanPlus.
And now some sports news from Taiwan's Professional Baseball League. The CTBC brothers have secured a place in this season's championships. The team triumphed 3-2 against the Weichuan Dragons last night, knocking their opponents out of the semifinals. The brothers got an early start, hitting a 2-run home run in the bottom of the first inning. The Dragons looked like they might catch up in the top of the 7th with a 2-run blast of their own. But the brothers quickly regained their lead, scoring an additional run in the bottom of the same inning. The CTBC brothers will go on to face off against the Rakuten Monkeys on Saturday in the final round known as the Taiwan Series. Thank you for watching Taiwan Plus News. Remember to download the Taiwan Plus app for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. I'm Liao. Take care and see you next time.